This week on AC Podcast, we have Allison Henson with us, and we're doing our second episode of Her Voice, His Power. And I wanted to have her on today to share what she's doing to build her house. In Proverbs 14:1, it talks about a wise woman buildeth her house, and I wanted her to share some things that she's doing to build her home. So I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of tell your story.
Okay. Well, I am Allison Henson. I am married to Jeremy Henson. He is the evangelism pastor here at Apostolic Center, and we have been married for 9, almost 10 years. We have 4 children, all girls. They are Everly, and she is 7, and Emmy is 5. She's about to have a birthday. Hollis is 4, and Hadley is a year and a half. So I've been parenting for almost 8 years now, and every child is different. So
Yes, definitely.
It's still a learning process. As far as the church, I'm involved in the music department heavily, and then kind of just wherever things are needed. Right now, my favorite, I think, is helping in the kitchen.
I do love the kitchen ministry.
The fellowship.
Yes.
So that's a little bit about me.
And you've always grown up being a part. Yeah. Your mom always brought you to all of her practices and kept you guys involved. And it's now translating into your life now.
Yes.
So I know we had talked about some non-negotiables that you have in your home, and I want you to share that with our listeners.
So I have 3 that are pretty big for my non-negotiables. My first one is that my kids see me serving in my house. So for me, that I kind of take the call from, it's in Titus 2, and I think verse 5, where God calls us to be the gatekeepers of our home. And that to me is really, what we allow in our home. So it's kind of a 2-part thing. It's what I allow in my home for my kids, and then how I work in my home to provide for them and to keep our home running. So I kind of think of this an example. There is, with having 4 girls, they're into girly toys and things. And there is a specific toy and doll, if you want to call it that does not look holy. And we have a rule, and my kids know we don't have those dolls.
Yeah.
And when they're out shopping, or when they're telling grandma and grandpa, what they want for Christmas, they know. They may be attracted to it, but they know it's not allowed in our home. So that's kind of the first thing. That's really where I feel like we are the gatekeeper, and they have to know what our rules are. And there has to be rules for them, to understand and to know what's allowed in our house. So they have to know those things. It's not just things that we feel for ourselves, but we communicate to them.
My dad always people want to come here and say, well, what are all the rules? But he always says it's really safeguards. You're putting up safeguards for your children.
Yes.
And God, leads us to what we feel is necessary in our own home.
Yes, absolutely. So. The second thing for me is how I serve my family. So, being a wife and a mom, it's the daily chores. It's the daily tasks. It's cleaning up. It's doing the dishes and doing the laundry. It's cooking for my family. These are the ways that I can serve them. And sometimes the easiest time for me to serve is when everybody's gone to sleep. And I go downstairs and I'll put on a podcast, or I'll put on worship music and take care of things for my house that way. And that's easy. But to me, my kids aren't seeing it.
Right.
And so if they just wake up and things are done, they're never seeing the actual work that it takes. And I feel that we have a responsibility to teach them that, if the Lord tarries, they're going to be responsible for these things when they're older. And so, not to say I don't wait till they go to bed, because sometimes I do. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do to make things function.
I am a late night. I like to have the kitchen and the living room at least picked up before I go to bed. So when I come down in the morning, fresh start.
Yes. And for Saturdays for me, especially on Saturdays, knowing with church the next day, I'm setting out
Mm-hmm.
their clothes.
Yes.
I'm setting out, oh, you need an undershirt with that. Oh, you need a headband or a bow or something, or
Right.
we're going to wear these shoes. I'm making sure that everything is there to set Sunday up for a success. So we're not scrambling Sunday morning. So that is, something I do. So now, I can't always do those things at night because I want them to see. And so I'm working on introducing age appropriate things that they can do to help.
Mm-hmm.
So for Everly and even Emmy, a lot of things are they're putting their own laundry away. I can be the one that washes it and folds it, but they are going to do some of that working.
Right.
So those are kind of how I feel for serving my home that they are a part of.
Honestly, you're kind of doing your kid somewhat of a disservice if you don't teach him that responsibility. And, you talk about your kids watching you. My boys are getting old enough to where they're recognizing the stuff that I'm doing. And I am a words of affirmation girly. And the other night I had cooked, well, Louie does it almost every time. And Leo does sometimes too, but they'll be like, Mom, you're the best cooker. And it makes me want to cook more for them too. But, but it's good for them to see, but then it kind of fills your cup too. And it's like,
Absolutely.
I'm not doing this all in vain. They see what I'm doing. And it does make me feel good that, our mom, just to hear, Mom, you're the best. I had so much fun today. Things like that.
Absolutely.
So it's good both ways.
And Everly likes to help if I make banana bread.
Mm-hmm.
She loves to help do that. And, I think you would understand it's much quicker if I just do it myself.
Yes.
It takes patience to let them help.
Mm-hmm.
But she has to learn.
Right.
I can't just expect her to know how to do things if I'm not showing her. So it requires a little bit of pausing and patience to let them.
And she'll look back and say, I always loved making banana bread with my mom. And maybe that'll be, something that you and her do, just the two of you.
Right.
And I'm sure you experience this too, but I have mentioned it before on the podcast, but I have 3 boys and then I just had my first girl and you have all 4 girls. So trying to divide your time and make sure they get that individual one-on-one time. What are some things that you do?
School's about to let out, but I have gone and had lunch with them, especially for the older girls, Evie and Emmy. Their lunchtime is right next to each other. So I can go and I can take 45 minutes and I get that individual time with each of them, which is really special. And then for my younger ones, I'm with them more on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And so I kind of get just a little bit more interaction with them in general. But just knowing what they like and doing what they like.
Yes.
So like for Evie, it's the banana bread. She loves that. Some of the other ones, Emmy likes to go right in sidewalk chalk or play with bubbles outside. And so it's just being present and being there and doing those things. I want to read a book outside while they're playing.
Right.
And sometimes I do. And they're okay with that. They have each other to play with. But I think just being present when you can and be with them.
I always say my 2 older boys, they are so good at playing together. But I know, like, if I come in there and play with them, it's so much more fun for them. It's not convenient for me to sit on the floor and hoop and holler like Godzilla and King Kong, but they love that. I remember my mom playing with me on the floor, playing my kind of game. She'd let me be the mom and she'd be my daughter. I liked playing like that. And those are the things that I remember. And I want my boys to remember, I did activities with them. I spent the one-on-one time and tried to cater to their needs. I mean, I have 3 boys, but they are 3 very different boys. There's some similarities, but there are a lot of differences. And even with disciplining, I mean, Louis, he does not like to be, he wants it quick and over with. Don't draw it out. Don't give him a lecture. Just get on to him, correct him and move forward. He doesn't, so I tried to just do it very quickly where Leo, we kind of talk it out and it's Salem. I'm still learning on what to do with that with him, but anyways, trying to cater, for each individual's needs, I think you do a great job at that, by the way.
Thank you. So then my second non-negotiable is that they see me serving in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that can look like a lot of different things. Right now, I do a lot of things with the music. And so I'm here at church early. And so they're here at church early
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they do. They have to be. And I love it because I think back to our moms being in choir practice together, and we were always here, and the friendship that we have.
Right.
And so I know that they'll build that with other kids that are here. But it can look like different things. I think about Monday night prayer that they come to, and I don't think they're getting a lot of the prayer out of it yet,
Right.
but they're in the atmosphere. I recently made a meal for a young mom who had a baby, and they were at the home while I made the meal, and then they had to ride with me and go deliver that. And just, I want them to see how we serve the church.
Mm-hmm.
And when we serve the church, we serve the people of God, we serve the congregation. And so just any way that I can get them involved in those things.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like you're speaking to deaf ears, and it's like, are you understanding what I'm saying? At least with the boys. And then I see them talking to each other, and it's like, they really are getting it, you know? And even listening to the worship music in the car, it's like, I used to think, I can't wait for the day that they sing along to the songs. And now they do. And it is so touching to me to hear them sing those songs and worship. I walked in on telling Louis tonight, they call it Mac Alive. It's just Mac
My
Alive,
kids do too.
but it's Mac Alive.
Macca.
And Leo's like, okay, you can either pray like this or you can pray like this. But tonight you're going to pray.
I love it.
But I mean, it's just sweet to walk in on that. And it's the influence. You're their number one influence.
Absolutely.
And so as far as ministering to other moms, who are some examples that you've had? And then what are you doing to try to minister to other young moms? Because it can be so challenging, that first baby.
Yeah.
I always say the second baby is the sweet spot because you just have that confidence. Right. You kind of know what you're doing. There's not as many surprises,
Right. I feel like I just try to check in if I can,
Mm-hmm.
Ask how things are going, what areas, do you have questions? Because I feel like with kids, we've both gone through it 4 times. I feel like I'm an open book. What can do you?
I've probably been through it too.
I could probably, at least if I don't have any advice, I can have a story that you can relate to.
That's what I always say. My ministry is just being relatable. Any struggle mom wise that you've gone through, I've probably done it.
Right. And I think sometimes that's all people need sometimes, to know that you've been where they've been. Yes. You're, or even right now, my word, it's like, I'm still in the trenches. I've got a 1.5-year-old that's teething and, all the things. I don't feel like I've arrived. And so just letting somebody know you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. You're going to make it. There's days that are better than others. There's weeks that are better than others. It gets better. One person that I've always looked up to, Sister Marcia, she, people have always kind of said like, oh, you're going to miss it when they're young. Like you'll look back and miss it. And I think that's true. I think there's a lot of truth to it. But I have always appreciated Sister Marcia's perspective when she has spoken in the Young Marrieds class that said, oh, but it gets so much better. Mm-hmm. You're going to love being with your older kids and having real conversations and traveling with them. And, there's just a different bond when they're older. And I see that even now with Everly. We can kind of have like inside jokes and, if I know Jeremy's on his way home, she might want to hide and scare him. And so just kind of like looking at her, I can't remember exactly what it was. Something in the past couple of weeks, I had told her in the van, and she was the only one that had picked up on it. And I just kind of like looked back, and she looked at me and we smiled, and it was like we had this little like inside moment. Mm-hmm. And so I so appreciate Sister Marcia's perspective that, things change, but it gets better. Yes. And I love that. I have loved every stage that they're in, and we'll keep
people
loving.
Ask me, what's your favorite stage? I really can't pick. I mean, I love the stage that I'm in with Pippin right now, and Salem. He's really starting to talk and communicate, and the other day he walked down the stairs and I said, well, morning. And he goes, morning, just right back, clear as day. And it just was so funny it coming from him,
Right.
But then I kind of group Leo and Louie together because they're almost Irish twins and they're so close and we've kind of raised them as if they were twins.
Right.
But just having the big boy conversations and chit chatting with them, and Leo, he loves conversation, loves the big mom. Let's just keep talking. What do you want? What do you want to talk about now? And I'm like, well, give me a prompt here because I'm running out of things to say. But I just can't. I don't know. I love the newborn.
Yeah.
But I also love where I'm at with Leo, watching him learn, watching his mind.
Yes.
We do homeschool, and just seeing him grasp it, and it's so rewarding. But then at the same time, rolling over in the morning and seeing that little girl look up at me, smile,
Yes.
it's hard for me to give up the baby stage, which is, here I am with 4 babies, 4 kids. But people ask me a lot what they think. This is just practical, but what do you think the hardest transition was? Because I get asked, was it the first baby? Was it having the second? Was it having the third? Was it having the fourth? What do you feel like as a mom of 4? What was maybe your most challenging transition?
Sure. We always kind of joked that it was the 2 to 3 kids, because 2 kids, you've got mom and dad, and you can each take care of one. And then when you add that third one into the mix, Jeremy used to call
You're outnumbered.
Yes. Yeah. He would call it, you're going from man-on-man coverage to zone coverage.
Yeah.
And so probably that transition, but I feel like we were just, I don't want to say prepared, because I don't think anybody's prepared.
Right.
But for me, having a younger brother who was 14 years younger than me, I think that in a lot of ways that made me more ready. And I kind of understood.
And you and I grew up babysitting. We babysit all the time for people.
Absolutely.
So I was used to wrangling a bunch of kids.
Right. I mean, it was just second nature.
Yes.
And so I think that a lot of those things in life got me ready to where it's a transition, but it wasn't something that I couldn't do.
Right.
And so I just took everything in stride.
Yeah. I think for me, it was the 2 to 3. You're for one outnumbered, but the age of my children, I had 3 under 3.
Yeah.
And so, I had 2 kids that were kind of in that hard transition of being 2 and 3-year-olds,
Right.
And not that they were, I hate to say terrible twos, because they really weren't terrible, but those big emotions, and then you have a baby too.
Yes.
But my kids have always been such good big brothers. They've always taken it in stride, never dealt with the jealousy thing.
Right.
And that's something we try to incorporate in our home. We always have more love for someone else, to add.
Yes.
So transitioning here, I know you brought some books to talk about.
I did. So for me, let me hit my third point real quick. I'm so sorry. It's my third non-negotiable is praying and reading the word. And that my kids see that. And so with prayer especially, it's not just that they see it, but that they experience it. Right. So for me, the kind of the season that I'm in where I work part-time, and so I have more flexibility. And I understand that's quite a blessing, because I remember the days where I had 3 kids and I worked full-time.
Right.
And you don't have that flexibility to just come to the church.
And you're worn out.
Yes, absolutely. So my current schedule has a lot of times been dropping the big girls off at school and then coming to the church. And so my younger girls are seeing that time here. But for the big girls, when they've had days off of school, we've came, or Monday night prayer, they come. So they see it in that regards. But I don't want them to just see it. I want them to know. So we do a couple times that we pray. So meal times. And at home, we sit around the dining room table, and Hadley doesn't quite have it yet that we don't eat until we've prayed, but she's getting there. And so sometimes we wait for 4 people to pray before we eat. So it's letting them get that practice. And the older girls kind of have little rhymey songs that they've learned from school, or even Hollis has learned from Sunday school. They kind of have those things that they pray, but that they'll take turns, and we'll let them. I want to give them that space to practice
Right.
praying. And I not that it's even practice, but to get to get it to where they are comfortable doing it. Because we've even been out to eat with other people and we've said, okay, which kid, it's your turn to pray tonight.
Right.
But then my other time is on our way to school. There's a certain point on our trip where I know that I'll tell them, okay, guys, it's time to pray. And then they will take turns praying. And what's been really beautiful to me is I pray last. I'll let them all go first. Is that, when we started, they were saying their prayers for food.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care because it's the point is to get them to know how to pray.
Right.
And so there's always going to be a starting point. And so if they know this is a prayer I know and they're saying it, then that's fine with me. But as we've gone through over the years, I've heard them pick up things that I say,
mm-hmm.
and just everly pleading the blood over us.
Yeah.
Like they pray for their dad, and his job and his business, and that things are blessed. And I can't tell you how valuable that is to me.
Yeah.
That they are learning, because to me, one thing that I recently started doing with them is asking, do you have a prayer request? I know they do it in Sunday school, so I know that they understand that concept. And one day Everly said, my stomach hurts. I said, that's okay. We're going to pray about that. And so we pray for it before we go to school. And my thought with that is, if they understand I can take any need to God in prayer, that they learn that for themselves. And then if someone in the school or a friend or someone says, I've got this going on, I want my kid to be the one that says, I know how to pray for that.
Yeah.
We can take that need to God in prayer, and God will meet us there, and God will answer that need. It is my responsibility to teach them. So it's not just, them hearing me pray, but I make them pray. And sometimes we've gone back and forth and they don't want to do it today or something. And so I've said, okay, that's fine for today. But just so you know, you have to pray 2 more times this week, because they're kids. They're not always going to feel it. And, let's be honest, I don't always feel like I want to pray, but it's putting your flesh under subjection. And so that's my big thing. That's where I feel like I put a lot of emphasis on, is praying and reading the word. Last year with Everly, we did Bible quizzing, and that was a really special time for us together, because it was me in the trenches with her. And it did a lot for me too. I don't want to say selfishly, but I learned a lot of scripture along with her. But I want them to know the places to turn to. And so that kind of is a good point to, you brought up the books. There are a couple books that I really enjoy with my kids. And the first is called He Hears Us. And I think the company that makes it is Truth Book Co.
Okay.
And He Hears Us is all about prayer and what we can pray for. And I'm going to pray for you and you're going to pray for me. And we can pray for our teachers and we can pray for our neighbors. And so I feel like this one has been really good about just getting them to understand prayer, just in general, that we can take anything to God in prayer. Because I also don't want them to just feel like, oh, it's just mom telling me these things. I want them to have outside sources that let them know this is what we do. This is what's right. So this is really good. And just when I mentioned Truth Book Co., they also have a really good book called Male and Female Created He Them. And that is something that I gift the girls' teachers at school. So as they've changed teachers every year, that's a book that I gift their classroom. And I can do that because they're in a Christian school. I understand not everybody has that.
Right.
But it is so foundational about how God created us. The other book that I brought today is called You Are Special by Max Lucado. And it is really about understanding your value from the Creator. And when you know your value and you know that the Creator loves you, that it doesn't matter what other people think. And so that one's a really special one for us too, just letting them know who they are. Because I think when you know who you are and you know I'm loved, I'm chosen, I'm all of these things because that's who God said I am.
Mm-hmm.
Then when someone says, I don't want to play with you or you're not my friend, they can let that roll off because they know who values them. So those are two books that I really highly recommend for parents to have in your bookshelf for your
Yes,
kids.
I love those recommendations. Are there any scriptures, or let me say this, with Bible quizzing? I know we've talked in the past. What were some tools that you used to help your children learn the Word of God?
Yes. So we bought a Tony box,
Okay.
and you can buy the different characters that it's kind of like magnetic, and you put them on there and it plays. For me, with Bible quizzing, I did the subscription to the songs. And then it takes a little bit of work, but I bought the Creative Tonys, which are the blank ones, and you can load your own music on there. So what I would do is I would record the Bible quizzing songs onto the Tony and then let Everly listen to it that way. That way she had control of it. So she could, if she, needed to listen to something or wanted to learn or just wanted it in the background. And I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes I would just put it on so it was in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But that way it gave her the ability to do things on her own. At the time that she did Bible quizzing, she was not a reader. And so, it really puts a lot of the pressure, if you want to say it that way, on the parent to help because she couldn't read.
Right.
So, giving her the tools of how to do that made a world of difference, I think, in her success in Bible quizzing.
Something, I remind myself that God's Word will not return void.
Yeah.
And, on Spotify, I found King James Version Bible,
Yeah.
a version that I liked and enjoyed listening, a voice that I enjoyed listening to.
Sure.
And in the mornings, I try to always play that. They might not really be listening or focusing on what's going on, but the peace that comes into my home.
Absolutely.
And just that it's playing. And, I just pray that gets in their spirit. And when Pippin goes down for her nap, that's what I try to do for the background noise is that's playing and, hopefully getting in her subconscious.
Yes. No, absolutely. I love that. So, I mean, I play worship music all the time, and it's fun. You kind of brought up, the kids at Mac Live and stuff, but for my kids, it's when we're doing a new song at church, they walk in, they already know that song because they've heard me practice in my private time. And hearing them sing is just so sweet. But, yeah, we used the Tony box, those songs and that repetition for Evie was very helpful.
That's awesome. So with, being married and having 4 girls sometimes or 4 children, it's hard to find time for your spouse. What are some things that you do to prioritize your marriage?
Sure. For us, I don't feel like we necessarily get out a lot. We don't have like a weekly date night. But what we do have for us, it's more about quality over quantity.
Yes.
So, during the winter, we love turning all the lights off in the house and lighting the fireplace, and we sit on the couch right in front of the fireplace and we can talk. And it's more about just when we can find those pockets of time,
making the most of it.
Yes, we take advantage of it because we don't always get that time together. And a lot of times if we have a babysitter, we're doing something at the church.
I'm in the same boat.
It's not. I mean, we try to make birthdays, anniversary.
Right.
We try to let's do a date night for those things, but we have our kids with us, most of the time. So it really is just when you have that time, actually making the most of it.
Yes, I think I know I said it last time, but communication is so important. As long as you're communicating, Cordero and I try to talk as much as possible. We're always like, hey, how do you feel how things are going? Or, even in our marriage, we do a lot of self-reflection with the kids. What's something that we can do better? What can we work on?
Right.
We just try to keep an open line of communication. And as long as you're talking,
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important.
Yeah. So, Well, thank you for coming on today. I really enjoyed what you had to say, and I
Thank
know
you.
this will bless somebody. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And that's a wrap.